All right, greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How you doing? See you. Got some people in the Rockfin chats. We are live on Rockfin, YouTube, and Callin. Hello to everybody. Got some people on YouTube hanging out. G. Demarest says heat wave keeping on up here in Vancouver. Many sweaty Canadians. Is there a Canadian bacon joke in there somewhere? Bacon Canadians? Canadian bacon? I don't know. A slay me. Heat wave in Texas still, says Regan Parrington. All right. Let's get into it. Oh, real quick, before I do anything else, remember this is the best way here. The Cash App address you see on the screen is the best way to support the channel. I appreciate all of your support. All right, we're going to try and get through what we can get through. There was actually something I wanted to include today. Where is it? If I could find it. Maybe I won't find it quickly. Trying to find it quickly. Don't think I'll find it quickly. Who knows? Okay, I guess I won't. It was something from Jem Bendell, basically saying that there's, there are people profiting from both sides of the climate change argument. And people profiting from the climate change is a hoax side, and people profiting from the climate change is a thing side. But then there's actual reality outside of that. Those, cultural or arguments or whatever you want to say. Which is that we're destroying nature. And what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about the destruction of the natural world? That conversation should still go on, right? Because if you agree that we're destroying nature or hurting nature, let's say, poisoning, right? If you absolutely know, and you should know that we're actually poisoning ourselves and poisoning nature all the time, then you should understand that climate change is real, right? Because you have to actually unhook, we're doing bad things to the planet, but climate change, nah, there's plenty to go around and we're not doing anything bad and it's totally fine. And you can overindulge and eat pizza and drink beer all day long and nothing will ever happen to you in your body, right? Obviously you can't do that, but somehow magically humans can do anything they want, completely unregulated, unfettered, and free, and running across the world doing whatever they want. Humans can just do everything, and no, there's plenty of resources. There's no, absolutely not. We're not doing anything. Anyways, but let's start with this. We'll go back to, we'll start with a little bit of world news that I find quite frightening. And a lot of people have been talking about this particular news story over the last couple of days, that Nancy Pelosi is going to Taiwan and triggering a standoff between the U.S. and China. And it certainly seems that that's the intention. And of course, people are like, why is this happening? This is necessary? Is this necessary right now? This is from a Hal Turner radio show But from yesterday, China armor headed to Fujian across from Taiwan. Navy starts live fire drills in the Taiwan Strait. China is extremely displeased with the potential trip by USA Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, and they are openly warning of a military action if the Speaker dares to try to land in Taiwan without approval from and transiting through Beijing. Pelosi is reported to have begun her Asia trip yesterday with stops in various countries. One potential stop may be into Taiwan. In the past, if any high-ranking political official from any country wanted to go to Taiwan, that official asks for permission from Beijing, then travel to Beijing, and later heads to Taiwan. This is the way it has always been, given that the world has a one-China policy and that Taiwan is part of China. Last year, however, U.S. officials began flying directly into Taiwan. To China, this is like getting a finger stuck in their eye. It was insulting and demeaning that the island was being treated as if it were its own country, which it is not. So when it became public knowledge that Speaker Pelosi was planning an Asia trip with a stop in Taiwan, China decided they'd had enough. It was made known in China official state media that Beijing will not tolerate direct flights by foreign officials into Taiwan. The U.S. basically ignored those challenges. China's Global Times newspaper then began running a series of stories with accompanying editorials making clear a direct flight by Pelosi would not be tolerated. In response, the Pentagon made known that the U.S. Navy is setting up concentric circles of protection for Pelosi's plane. Exclamation point. Not only does Pelosi plan to enter Taiwan without getting approval from or transiting through Beijing, now the U.S. military is saying they will provide military protection for her to actually do it. It's almost as though the U.S. no longer acknowledges that China is its own sovereign country and it makes the rules, it's pretty much how we operate everywhere else, by the way, if you're watching at home, playing along at home. The Pentagon announcement of military protection for Pelosi's plane caused even more backlash. Just yesterday, the top editor of the Global Times, which is the mouthpiece of the China Communist Party, said the following: if U.S. fighter jets escort Pelosi's plane into Taiwan, it is an invasion. The PLA has the right to forcibly dispel Pelosi's plane and the U.S. fighter jets, including firing warning shots and making tactical movement of obstruction. If ineffective, then shoot them down. Oh, Lord, that's getting a little intense. So as of yesterday, apparently she's in Hawaii planning to head to, I'm not going to read any more of this. Am I reading outdated news on this? No, this is July 30th, 2022. But if I am, let me know. Is something else happening with it that I don't know about? I don't know. I'm reading the story that has yesterday's date on it. Did something else happen with that, Judy? I don't know. Anyways, we'll see what happens. I don't know. A lot of people have been talking about this for a while. Christian Sorensen says Pelosi becoming the new Franz Ferdinand. Right. I thought that myself. Anyways, just heads up on that. A lot of people are very confused about this. Before we get into some climate change stuff, Joe Biden tests positive for COVID again. What was the drug that he took? The antiviral he took? I believe it was Paxlovid. And so both Biden and Fauci testing positive twice within very close approximation of each other, right? So they had COVID and then apparently escaped COVID, and then whoa, they got COVID again. Like Biden was just declared COVID free like 2 days ago. Uh, and this is a good tweet from Defiant Els. Biden mocks Trump's COVID diagnosis as he tests negative and leaves White House isolation. And then Biden tests positive for COVID again and goes back into White House isolation. These are 3 days apart. And then one more tweet here. So Joe tests positive again. Paxlovid failure. No need for any further advertisement. They're doing it all by themselves. Pretty much. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. And extreme temperatures around the world. New ferocious heat wave in Morocco and Algeria today. Temperatures reached 46.8 C at Taroudant, 46.2 C at Marrakesh, Kasbah, Tadla, and 45.9 C at Beni Malal in Morocco, 46.7 C at Urgla in Algeria. Next 2 days can be even hotter with the heat expanding to southwest Europe. Stay tuned. Right, they're supposed to be gearing up for yet another heat wave in Europe. Again, to the people that are like, oh, this is just normal. Not so much in Europe. And then, so maybe you might point to the fact that they reached these temperatures before. Yeah, but then they have these temperatures rolling, over and over again, 2, 3, 4 times in a couple of months. That's also not supposed to happen. So, I don't know. There is a lot. I mean, there's just so much chatter and debate around, on Twitter every day. It's trending like climate scam or climate hoax or something, which is unfortunate because people are being propagandized from all sides, and that's unfortunate. We're entering a time of great confusion, the great confusion, where nobody knows what's going on until they do. Where is it? I want to see this. Yeah, this is. I thought this was funny. So I go check out the climate scam and climate hoax threads sometimes just to see what's going on. What are they saying? But this is hilarious because this is somebody that wants to push back against Justin Trudeau, who I don't like, and their phony climate crisis, climate scam. Okay, I'm not a fan of Trudeau, and I'm not a fan of the things that he's doing. But this person is quoting an oil CEO and says the Fed's approach to emissions getting very aggressive. So this person, their proof that this is wrong is coming from an oil industry CEO, which I had to point out. And several people were like, you're quoting an oil CEO? Again, the two sides of the argument, there's just, right? It's just so confusing because, for people that understand for a lot of people that understand climate change, not all, but for a lot of people that understand climate change and that are in the more liberal realm, well, climate change is real, and these fossil fuel industries are corporate monsters and they're ruining the world. But big pharma is great. They care about you and they only care about your health. And just listen to the medical advice that you get from captured. It's that, you know what I'm saying. And then, you know, on the other side, it's like, well, we're uncovering the evil doings of the big pharma and all the captured agencies, but you know, but oil is fine, and there's nothing going on with fossil fuel industries. They're, you know, they're just trying to provide us with clean, cheap, reliable energy, right? You know, this CO2 thing is ridiculous. They're just parroting corporate think tank propaganda talking points that have been laid out for decades, and I don't, you know, somehow they think they're giving you some kind of inside baseball on that. So, you know, a lot of confused people out there, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that there are so many super duper. It's unfortunate that people, you know, are being confused by the same people that are supposedly telling you the truth. And that's, you know, but you believe who you want, right? Oh, I believe CNN. Oh, I believe, you know, this other channel over here. Get super skeptical, people. Anyways, I just thought that was hilarious and ridiculous. Let's look at this. This is interesting. Fantomas sent me this, and there's a lot of chatter about this as well, that Taylor Swift is one of the biggest offenders of private jet use. Just plain wrong. Celebs with the worst private jet CO2 emissions. And this is a bit of a trending thing going on Twitter, too. People talking about Taylor Swift's CO2 emissions. You know, it's great. You know, I'm glad that people have success. I'm glad that, you know, musicians, you know, I'm a musician. I love music. Happy to see, I don't, you know, I'm not talking about these musicians particularly on this list. But happy to see when musicians are successful and whatnot. But, you know, musicians are as big a problem as anybody else, right? They become wealthy, famous elites, and, you know, and then are able to just destroy the planet with impunity, just like all the other rich people, right? So I don't know. I don't know when. There have been a few musicians, I guess, here and there who've said something about this, but I'm waiting for musicians to go like, yeah, you know, this is just not good practice anymore to fly all over the place, you know, and to, you know, load up 13 tractor trailers with all of our gear and just run around the country and play shows. I mean, like, okay, that's great, and, you know, big money maker, blah, blah, blah. We don't really have to do that anymore, you know, and you have enough money, right? You've got millions of dollars in the bank. You're really well off. Why not pack it up? Why not just go home? Just enjoy yourself, right? Enjoy your 3 mansions or whatever, you know, just have a good time. You can still make music, you know, in your super glitzy studio that you probably have. Each mansion has its own studio, and you can just pump out music all day, but just sit your butt at home. It's not really necessary, but I mean, I get it, because, you know, I'm a musician. I don't know if somebody was like, hey, dude, you want to open up for Blobbity Blue on this, you know, nationwide tour, or, you know, worldwide tour, I'd be like, oh, yes, I really do. But do you need to do that? Do you need to do that? Is that really necessary? I think it's time to question everything that we do. You know, I think it's time to question everything that we do. And that doesn't mean that I'm pro Agenda 2030 or Klaus Schwab or the WEF. I just think it's a good time to question everything we do. All right, Fantomas is calling in. What's up, Fantomas? How you doing?
How you doing? Yeah, I just wanted to comment to what you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
So the thing to me about this is like, yeah, we can blame the entertainers all day long, but I think mostly we should blame first and foremost the manufacturers who keep on making these gargantuan jets, and they don't listen. That's the same for the automobiles, the onslaught of electronics. All of these people are the number one culprits.
Yeah, well, and it's a systemic problem, and let me add also, yeah, you can get mad at all these people that have these huge CO2 carbon footprints, but you know that there's an end user in this too, right? All the people that show up at these stadiums to go see these shows, right? If you were like, yeah, Taylor Swift was like, I'm not gonna fly around the world anymore, because of climate change or something. Let's say she said that, I'm not going to do these shows anymore. There would be plenty of people going, oh my God, I want to go to a Taylor Swift show, right? I want to buy a Taylor Swift album, right? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like there's end users for everything. So it's not just, I think it's good to point fingers at the wealthy and the billionaire class, but it's also like, there are end users for all the people, all the billionaire, everything that the billionaire class creates, they all create things that we all demand and use and want, right? I mean, I see these tweets all day long. I'll never give up my own car until they give up their cars. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I see where that's going, but you're like, yeah, well, you're telling me that I'm the problem, but you're the problem. But it's like, well, can we all be the problem? Can we all recognize that, one person putting out a lot of emissions is the same as several people putting out a little bit of emissions, but they all kind of add up to the same emissions, right? I don't know. Anyway.
Well, that's going to be a disaster when you think about how it's going to come to heal, where we control certain areas of what people can build and what people can't build.
Mm-hmm.
But that's coming eventually.
Right.
I mean, it's probably when we're all dead, but it's eventually coming.
Right.
I wanted to ask you something. Did you see there's this talk about the AI generating for pictures and visuals and stuff, and someone said to the AI machine, I want to see what the last selfie on Earth looks like. Have you seen the image of that?
Oh, no, I haven't. Maybe I can find it.
I'm going to send that to you. I'm going to send that to you so you can look at it, and then you can maybe use it as like a thumbnail for your next one. Okay?
Well, is it on can I see it on Twitter?
Yeah, you can probably see it on Twitter.
I'm gonna search it real quick.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, it's crazy.
Hold on.
And one of the
shit, yes, I saw that.
I mean, it's insane. But one of the craziest things that they're doing is people are asking to zoom out of album cover pictures, and it's very fascinating to see what the AI creates an image of. It's almost like you don't want to know with a lot of these,
right?
And it's you just zoom out back and forth, and it'd be interesting to see how the AI views climate change in the next few years. What and how it starts to visualize that.
I'm showing these on the screen.
Yeah.
Of the last. Whoa. If y'all can see some of these are AI generated images of the last selfie.
So the last thing I wanted to mention is the author Dan McGuire has a book coming out called Hot House Earth.
Uh-huh.
And it's really I guess a very grim look at what we face in the Earth. But so you might want to take a look at the blurbs that are coming out on that. And I think there's an interview on CNN or something. I'll send you something about it. But so those are the two things I just wanted to talk about.
All right, cool. Thanks, man.
All right, later.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the call, Phantomus. Whoa, those are pretty grim images. Anyways, let's look at this list of top CO2 offenders, celebrity CO2 offenders. They left out the billionaire offenders, I'm sure. Maybe that's just a different story. But Taylor Swift number one, Floyd Mayweather number two, Jay-Z number three, A Rod number four, Blake Shelton number five, Steven Spielberg number six, Kim Kardashian number seven, eight, Mark Wahlberg nine, Oprah Winfrey 10, Travis Scott. If you want to know. All right, let's keep going. Interesting thread from Jason Hickel. We're going to talk about resource appropriation. There's a lot of talk about resource appropriation from the West or the North or U.S., which is all very true. Jason Hickel, I'm excited to share this new paper we have out. Imperialist appropriation in the world economy. The results confirm that the global North relies on a massive net appropriation of resources and labor from the South. The figures are quite staggering. So let's go through this. In 2015, the North's net appropriation from the South included 12 billion tons of embodied raw material equivalents, 822 million hectares of embodied land, 21 exajoules of embodied energy, 188 million person years of embodied labor. Wow. Two quick things before we go on. Embodied here means inputs embodied in the production of traded goods, including manufactured products. We use the IMF's Advanced Economies list as a proxy for the global North. To put these figures in perspective, 12 billion tons of raw material equivalents is 43% of the North's annual material consumption. Or we'll call that half. In other words, nearly half of the North's material consumption is net appropriated from the South. 822 million hectares of land, more than twice the size of India, would, in theory, be enough to provide nutritious food for up to 6 billion people, depending on land, productivity, and diet. 21 exajoules of energy would be enough to cover the annual energy requirements of building infrastructure. So let me real quick. People might seize on this and go like, you just need twice the area of India to feed, 6 billion people. Yeah. But, when people do, say, the people can fit in the state of Texas. Okay. Not every hectare of land in India is arable, right? People aren't farming every inch of land in India. And so if it's double, the area of India, the size of India, again, you're not farming every single inch of India. And not every single inch of India can be used. So that's just compacting like arable land, spreading that out over the world. How much is really arable land, right? Consider how much arable land there is in the U.S. You have breadbaskets, and then you have deserts, and then and then you have places where that need lots of irrigation in order to be arable. So it's not the same. Anyways. "21 exajoules of energy would be enough to cover the annual energy requirements of building infrastructure to ensure that all 6.5... Oh, to go back to, and not all the land in the U.S. is arable because there's trees and forests, right? And you don't want to cut down the trees in the forest to make arable land. We did a lot of that. In the last couple centuries, and that's bad for the overall environment, right? So, anyways, 21 exajoules of energy would be enough to cover the annual energy requirements of building infrastructure to ensure that 6.5 billion people in the global South have access to decent housing, public transport, healthcare, education, sanitation, communication, etc. In other words, all of this productive capacity could be used to provide for local human needs, but instead it is roped into servicing capital accumulation in the North. Patterns of net appropriation reproduce deprivation in the South. These results also confirm that much of the ecological impact of resource use in the global North is effectively offshored to the global South. The North benefits from appropriated resources while the South suffers the damage. How much are these resources worth? It is impossible to say precisely, as prices are a political artifact. But if represented in Northern prices, the drain amount would be 10.8 trillion in the final year of data, 2015. That would be enough to end extreme poverty 70 times over. Good point there. I mean, we have enough to end extreme poverty and hunger right now, and we don't do that because we lock up the food, or we lock up the resources. But the true value to Northern capital cannot be calculated. For the North, a drain represents a huge windfall equivalent to a quarter of their GDP, but the true value of Northern capital cannot be calculated. This arrangement sustains the very possibility of growthism in the North and stabilizes capital accumulation itself. We also compared aid flows to drain and found that for every dollar of aid that recipients get, they lose, on average, $30 through drain to donor countries. Poorer countries are developing richer countries, not the other way around. Interesting. Finally, a big, and it goes on. Anyways, a lot of people are like, oh, but the South is getting better. Anyways, just want to read that thread. Very interesting. What would our economies and what would our countries look like without that drain on the global South's resources? Would also be interesting to know. Let's keep going. Because time is of the essence. Roger Hallam also had a very long thread on what's happening. Just Collapse retweeted this, and they're challenging what he says about mass mobilization or fighting. What's going on that will prevent mass deaths? I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm gonna reserve judgment on that. So Roger says it is a week since the highest temperatures in thousands of years hit the UK. It is now an objective reality that this civilization will collapse at some point in the early 2030s. Long tail possibilities are the late 2020s and the late 2030s. On the other side. Why? Forget global averages of 1.5 to 2C. That's all political distraction. What will bring down the system is physical and biological hard stops and the compounding secondary effects cascading through the system. These are objective, like putting a bullet through someone's brain. They die. They have nothing to do with societal predictions, i.e. complex systems. This is Newtonian cause and effect. The key is to look at extreme weather events over the next 20 years. The most important stats are the progressions of the recent past projected onto the near future. Record high temperatures are going up by approximately 0.5 C a year, e.g. 2019, hold on, 38 C in 2019 and 40 C in 2022 in the UK. We can do a linear projection, therefore, that the UK will hit up to 45 C heat by 2030 and 50 C by 2040. This is the cool temperate zone scenario. Project that onto the warm temperate areas where it is now 45 to 50 C, Portugal, Sicily, and we can project up to 55 C by 2030 and 60 C by 2040. In tropical areas where the present limit is around 55 C at present, we are looking at 60 C by 2030 and 65. I mean, imagine that. Of course, there are good reasons to argue that the yearly average increases will be exponential, not linear, particularly as the Arctic ice will be melted in the summer around 2030, 2035, according to peer-reviewed papers. Again, there are no peer-reviewed papers arguing. Okay, let me not put my foot in my mouth. But there aren't any papers that I've seen that argue really against that. or against the fact that this is all happening. Some may argue that it might happen slower than predicted, and some are arguing faster than predicted, but none are arguing that it's not happening at all. So let me just clarify that. These then are conservative projections. Moving up the normal distribution curve, let's say each zone will experience 30 plus days of temperatures around 5°C less than the record high temperature each year. Okay, go and do the maths on the following hard stops. These have come from news stories over the past few weeks. You cannot fly a plane at temperatures over 48°C. You die within 6 hours at humid temperatures of 50°C. That's 122 Fahrenheit. Major rivers, go ahead and tell me that 122 Fahrenheit, extremely humid 122 is going to be, dandy, okay, fine for you. Major rivers dry up at 40°C. Think transport routes. Internet centers cannot function over 35°C. This is also another great point, right? I know for a fact my computer doesn't like to operate when it's hot. If I sat in a very climate-controlled, air-conditioned studio or room, then I wouldn't be subject to that. But if the power goes out, and all of a sudden I can't do my show because it's too hot, my computer's going to overheat. Well, so much for doing broadcasts that tell you that climate change isn't a thing. I'm not talking about me, but talking about others. Roads, runways, railway tracks, and wiring melt at 40°C. Most food crops cannot grow and die at temperatures over 30°C. Add in other predictions from the past few years. Vietnam will be periodically 90% underwater within decades. Think rice production. Indian wheat production will be 30% down by 2030. The U.S. coastal property price bubble will burst at some point in the mid to late 2020s. It's funny. There's a meme going around saying that, because Barack Obama bought a house at Martha's Vineyards, that proves that climate change is false. I'm like, okay. Okay, that does it. That proves it's false. He bought a house, near the ocean. Okay. Again, I don't know what that means. It's a bit of a faulty logic there, and I don't mean a bit. There are other houses falling into the ocean, in other places along the eastern seaboard. So, you have to ignore that to actually make that meme and put it out there and say that it's true, but it's fine. 20% of Australian forest on average will burn down by 2040. 30% of London houses will be subsiding by mid-century. Lakes in the U.S. West will be empty by the late 2020s. The Amazon will pass the 20 to 25% cut down tipping point into collapse within the next 10 years. Another COVID-like pandemic will hit in the next 10 years. 20% plus the U.S. Western regions will be burning each year by the mid-2030s. Some of these predictions are messy, and certainly fetish scientists co-opted by the system will find holes in them, like Holocaust deniers find holes in the assessment that 6 million Jews died in Nazi Germany. Maybe it was 5.5. These lines of argument have nothing to do with clear, cool risk analysis and everything to do with determinism. The psychological literature shows that most people cannot accept what they do not like, which is why there is a large resistance to anything about this. It is not a popular subject, I can tell you that much. I've been covering climate change for a while. People generally steer themselves away from it because they're like, no way, man, I don't want to know about that. Which is, again, normal for human beings who are emotional creatures, but not, if you want to go scientific, not scientific. By the 2030s, the civilization will be gone. In that sense, in the sense that regimes in the tropics will have collapsed and those in warm and cold temperate zones will have become either right-wing or left-wing state socialist enterprises. Pretty good assessment. The state socialism has nothing to do with politics. It is what happens in societies facing existential breakdown. Carbon rationing and then rationing of everything else is inevitable. Functioning regimes will be putting all their surplus resources into geoengineering. Dysfunctional ones will be collapsing into various cults of nihilism and thus disintegration. If there is a future, it will now be post-nature. This is a future where the whole geophysical system is controlled by human technologies. Just as happened with agriculture systems over the past half century, we are prisoners of our own technologies. There's a research job here for some people to collect all the predictions and do projections in a more systematic way. Get in touch with me if you can do this. The absolute imperative now is civil resistance to ensure that transition to what comes next is democratic and egalitarian rather than fascist and genocidal. I don't see anything wrong with that statement. If that's the point that talk collapse was, had an issue with, I don't see anything wrong with that. Because that is the way it's going to go. As things collapse, we are going to become more fascist. And so, if you want a less fascist authoritarian response to climate change, people are going to have to do something about that. But, we are already getting resistance to, that's the same thing as resistance to Agenda 2030 or resistance to the WEF or resistance to these state controls. Again, the problem is that there are actually things going on that we need to deal with. So it's difficult to do that with misinformation. JF Sebastian says bedbugs die at 118 degrees. How do you know that, sir? That's an interesting bit of trivia. Why do you know that? Anyways, that's an interesting thread. But, and what we're seeing is nothing different. The future is not going to really look a lot different from the recent past in the sense that, the dominant power of the planet, which is us, which is the U.S., is going to be fighting other dominant powers for the resources. What's left of the resource, control of the resources as things kind of unravel. This is an interesting video that's been going around from U.S. Southcom commander. I wish they listed her name here. Security being referred to as the United States stealing said riches to then leverage back against the global South as a tactic for geopolitical control. So she's saying some things about the global South is super rich in resources. That's why we need to get them all. Here we go. If this will play. I'm still experiencing this issue with. I can totally play these things with no issues with sound, and then as soon as I'm doing a show, they have no sound. That I find very interesting. But again, maybe it's just me. I'm just going to assume that it's me. I'm not saying anything, but I just find that an interesting phenomenon. I have a really hard time getting sound to work on these on Twitter. Here we go. All right, let's go back from the beginning. Okay, let's try it again. It is off the charts rich.
This region is so rich in resources. It's off the charts rich. And they have a lot to be proud of. And our competitors and adversaries also know.
They have a lot to be proud of and also should fear, be afraid of that we will come and take these things.
Rich in the resources that this region is. 60% of the world's lithium is in the region. You have heavy crude. You have light sweet crude. You have rare earth elements. You have the Amazon, which is called the lungs of the world. You have the 31% of the world's fresh water here in this region. And there are adversaries that are taking advantage of this region every single day, right in our neighborhood.
You know what that means. They're going to need some democracy soon. Adversaries are taking control of these resources, advantage of these places, and we don't like that at all. Not one bit. So what are we going to do?
And I just look at what happens in this region in terms of security, impacts our security, our national security in the whole.
You see where that's going. You see where that's going. That impacts our security. We are feeling insecure about this, so we're going to have to go give them some security because we're feeling a little insecure. You know how that works? You know how that works there? All right. That is wild. Not so wild. She's saying the quiet part out loud, right? Just like Trump going, we're here, we're going to take the oil. We love the oil. Can't even really do a good Trump, but we love the oil. That's why we got troops there. We're going to take the oil. And that's what we're going to do. And they were like, dude, why'd you say that? I mean, it's true, but why'd you say that? More democracy being delivered to Yemen. You know that Yemen has had a long-standing civil war. Saudi Arabia is involved, and the U.S. is involved by way of Saudi Arabia, but now they're just straight up going in there. A new batch of U.S. troops enters Yemen's energy-rich Mahra province. Energy-rich. You have crude, you have light sweet crude, you have lithium, you have... And we feel insecure. A new batch of U.S. military forces has entered Yemen's southeastern province of Al-Mahra as Washington continues its aggressive attempts to establish control over oil reserves and plunder natural resources in the energy-rich province. Yemen press agency, citing local sources, reported that American troops landed at Al-Gada Airport on Thursday on board a flight from Ryan International Airport in Mukalla, which lies on the shores of the Arabian Sea and about 480 kilometers east of Aden. The sources, who asked not to be named, stated that the arrival of the U.S. forces was followed by a major disruption to internet connectivity in the Sayut district. Wow. Blaming the internet blackout on the installation of sophisticated surveillance devices by American troops. Wow. Wow. Last month, a top-ranking Yemeni official said U.S. and British military trainers had arrived at a port in the country's Al-Mahra province on vessels loaded with munitions, as well as military and logistical equipment. Wow, I mean, it looks like this is going kind of mainstream, right? Yemen has been going on for a very long time, and we've been involved in supplying weapons there. But it seems like this is kind of going a little more, rampy. Provincial Governor Al-Katabi Ali Hussein Al-Faraj told Yemen's official Sabah news agency on June 26th that large arms shipments aboard military vessels disembarked at the port of Nishtun, and that British and American military trainers were stationed at Al-Gaida International Airport. Saudi-led coalition of aggression is involved in the smuggling and trade of narcotics in the area in order to perpetuate insecurity, advance its fiendish plots, and deter the local population from confronting the invaders, Faraj said at the time. A senior Yemeni official noted that occupiers and their allied Takfiri militants are trying to plunge Mahra province into utter chaos and confusion as locals are fiercely opposed to the presence of foreign forces. There's also a serious famine going on in Yemen as well. Yeah, good times. Good times. An official said Saudi-led coalition forces and their allied militants have violated UN-brokered ceasefire at least 154 times during the past 24 hours. Okay. All right. Got a couple more things to cover. This is an interesting discussion. So, did you know that the Biden administration is continuing with the? Oh, where did I see it? I saw something else that was pretty good about this. But maybe. Anyways, the Biden administration is continuing work on Trump's border wall. In essence, finishing Trump's border wall. Where was it? Oh, well, I can't find it, and I'm not going to look for it. And here's an exchange with, hold on. Is it Karine Jean-Pierre? Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, and a reporter about the border wall, and this gets pretty funny. Again, don't know if this will play. Hello, can I have some sound? Here we go. Here we go. So they are continuing work on this border wall.
Why is the Biden administration building a border wall in Arizona?
So we're not finishing the wall. We are cleaning up the mess the prior administration left behind in their failed attempt to build a wall. And I just want to be very, very clear here. On day one, we returned the money, the $8 billion the prior administration took from our military. We gave that back to the military for military families, for schools, for bases. That's what that money was being used. That's what it was taken away from. And so, again, what we're doing is cleaning up the mess that the prior administration has done.
But President Biden, when he was a candidate, said there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration.
Yeah.
So what changed?
We are not finishing the wall.
If walls work in that part of Arizona, is this the administration trying to get migrants to cross somewhere else, like in Texas? What is the plan?
We are not finishing a wall. We are cleaning up the mess that the prior administration made. We are trying to save lives. This is what the prior administration left behind that we are now cleaning up.
By finishing the wall, is this
We are not finishing.
by filling in, finishing,
We are not finishing the wall.
by filling in? Is this a
She's just, this is very bizarre. It's almost like, I don't know, maybe if anybody's ever had an exchange with a full-on narcissist, when they're just like, you're like, this thing didn't happen. They're like, it did happen. You're like, no, I don't think it did happen. And they're like, it did, or whatever, right? This is just gaslighting. And, she's just outright lying because they are finishing the wall. But just insisting, I insist this is not a thing. And he's like, yeah, I think it is a thing.
Biden administration building a border wall in Arizona?
Hold on.
So we're not finishing the wall. We are cleaning up the mess the prior administration left behind in their failed attempt to build a wall. And I just want to be very, very clear here. On day one, we returned the money, the $8 billion the prior administration took from our military. We gave that back to the military for military families, for schools, for bases. That's what that money was being used. That's what it was taken away from. And so, again, what we're doing is cleaning up the mess that the prior administration has done.
But President Biden, when he was a candidate, said there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration.
Yeah.
So what changed?
We are not finishing the wall.
If walls work in that part of Arizona, is is this the administration trying to get migrants to cross somewhere else, like in Texas? What is the plan?
We are not finishing a wall. We are cleaning up the mess that the prior administration made. We are trying to save lives. This is what the prior administration left behind that we are now cleaning up.
By finishing the wall, is this
We are not finishing.
by filling in, finishing,
We are not finishing the wall.
by filling in? Is this racist? Because in 2019, when the former guy was proposing a wall, you said that it was his racist wall. So how is this any different? I'm just having a hard time understanding how this is any
I'm
different.
not even sure how you get to your first question, to this question that you just asked me. I will say this: a border wall. I'm answering a question. A border wall is ineffective use of taxpayer dollars. So it's ineffective of taxpayer dollars that actually went to the military, that the last administration, the prior president, took from the military, which took away from schools, which took away from military bases. That's what that money that he pulled away from to build this wall that he wanted, that is ineffective, by the way, which I just said, just recently.
What is going on? But that was a funny question. Is this racist? because they absolutely were like, Trump is super duper racist, which he is. But also Biden, super duper racist, right? The Biden administration, super duper racist. Trump administration, super duper racist. So I think it's, but not looking like very good, a little weird. And also, yeah, Orwellian, somebody said. Orwellian, we're not finishing the border wall. We're cleaning up a mess from the last administration. We're not filling up, when they are actually completing the border wall. Hold on. I mean, this is from February. And this is in South Texas, so this is in a different location. Biden's latest move spurs criticism. He's continuing wall construction. Administration says it's filling in wall gaps for agent safety and flood control. So this is from a few months ago. This isn't even the current story, but they are actually finishing the wall. This is from 2 days ago. Biden admin quietly approves construction of U.S.-Mexico border wall near Yuma, Arizona. Sure, there's that. Anyways, on Thursday, the Biden administration approved a plan to complete a section of the border wall near Yuma, Arizona. We are not finishing a wall. We are not finishing a wall. We are not building a wall. I don't know. It's weird. That's really weird. Strange remarks from Corinne Jean-Pierre. The project will be funded under Homeland Security's 2021 budget, though it was initially planned to be funded by the Defense Department. It was initially planned. So 2021's budget, so it was initially going to be funded by Defense Department. Now it's going to be funded by Homeland Security. Personally, I don't know how that's different. How's that different? But I don't know. I mean, two different departments doing the same thing. So even the whole, so they're, maybe playing some 3-card Monty with the money. She was trying to say we gave the military back their money. Okay. But then you'll just spend the money over here. We're not spending the money over here. We'll spend the money over here. Okay. Okay. The sky is not blue. The sky is green. What are you talking about? pretty sure the sky is blue. No, the sky has always been green. I don't know what you're talking about. I could go off on another segue about that whole thing, but I won't. From Sarah Baker, I guess I'll finish up with these. I have got to go, guys. Sarah Baker, here it is, your moment of schizophrenia. One man's road to hell is another man's path to cut emissions. One man's we're doomed is another man's fantastic news. So Colibri Terry Sonnenblum says, so this is in the Inflation Reduction Act that's supposed to help with climate change. They're authorizing the sale of land and offshore leases for oil production. Not just authorizing. It is a locked-in provision. Like it must. They must allow this much land to be used for oil production. 620 million acres. That's how much in total will be offered for oil and gas leasing. Alaska, Montana, and California combined. And the area of public land and water that would be offered for new oil and gas leasing under Section 5265 of the Inflation Reduction Act. So, again, we're fighting climate change by offering more land for oil and gas. We fight climate change. Professor Catherine Hayhoe says the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 puts the U.S. on a path to cut carbon emissions 40% by 2030. That's fantastic news. Catherine Hayhoe, Jesus. Yeah, now I have issues with Catherine Hayhoe, mostly in her downplaying of what is really going on with climate change. Again, it's the opposite of what you think it is. She's not being paid to tell you that climate change is real and falsifying data. No, she's actually being paid to tell you that climate change isn't that big of a deal. Or at least that's, her position relies on her maintaining this very, pleasant out and telling you that the Dallas airport is net, carbon neutral or some nuttiness like that. Good news, Dallas airport is carbon neutral. Okay, are you about that? Good news, your oil drill, your new offshore oil drill off the coast of your favorite beach is carbon neutral. Thanks. I'll remember that when they have an oil spill. I'll remember that next time the pipeline bursts. Mm-hmm. Cheap, reliable energy. I'm Tony Heller. For Exxon. My name is Tony Heller. And I'm here to tell you that oil is cheap, reliable energy, and it's good for you. And it does great things for the planet, and we all love it. And CO2 is plant food. Thank you from the people at Exxon. Anyways, Catherine Hayhoe, funny. Good news. Good news. I'm going to ignore this whole thing about the oil and gas leasing. Mm-hmm. We are entering the grand confusion. The time of great confusion. Another one from Sarah Baker. Having a hard time deciphering reality from reality? Join the club. No one knows what the F is going on. Proper prioritization has flown the coop. So just let the soft animal of your body, as poet Mary Oliver put it, find solace in this. So 2 headlines. Could quiet quitting your job be the answer to burnout? And a weird evolutionary quirk in the human eye could be what saves us from climate change. Also funny. Okay, so that's it, guys. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. I'll see you all tomorrow at the regular time of 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Thank you for hanging out with me on YouTube, the Rockfins, and the call-in. Until until next time, peace.